just listening to you talk about breath, like we are so, our bodies so want to be connected to our breath that somebody
Right.
just mentions the word and you feel yourself breathing different.
Isn't that funny? Well, somebody out there is rooting for us. We might not see her or might not hear her, but there's somebody out there, something out there rooting for humanity. And she will never stop cheering. He is never going to stop saying, go for it. You got it. Come on. It's just, we're always connected to that thing.
All right, hang on. You're spitting pearls. Let me get this thing going.
Rolling.
Renegades.
Andre and I had this big idea.
Growing.
I had to have the people who didn't believe in me.
Between one day and the next, everything changed.
Nurses know how to solve shit.
Renegades. Welcome to the RNegade Podcast, a revolutionary approach to continuing education for nurses who don't just do what they're told. We're shining a light on the innovators, the creatives, the renegades who are blowing up the boxes that the rest of the world is still trying to think outside of. I'm so excited for you all. Ed Harold is such a treat. He's an author, motivational speaker, inspirational leader, coach, and educator. Ed's mastery in the science of breath has guided him to apply mindful, conscious breathing practice in the fitness and athletic industry, corporate wellness and organizational performance programs, as well as lifestyle coaching for individuals. Ed's Breath as Medicine continuing education trainings support the healthcare, health and wellness coaching, fitness, psychotherapy, and medical fitness industries, and are available on the RNegade platform, a 25-hour continuing education for nurses program that is available on the RNegade platform. Ed has written 2 books, Life with Breath, IQ plus EQ equals New You, and Body Mind Business, the business of being within, are a journey in discovering the mind-body relationship that is linked through breath and how this serves as a basis for reducing stress, improving health and well-being, building resilience, and improving both organizational or athletic performance. In this podcast, Ed and I run the gamut. All of the science and the transformative potential of breath is delivered through the Trojan horse of Ed's personal story, and he leaves us with some exercises and pearls of wisdom that are transformative, even in just this a single continuing education hour-long podcast with Ed. So I'm so excited for all of you who are about to listen to this. Stay tuned. Here's Ed. Today, I've known Ed since I think 2012. We met at a Phillies game.
Yeah.
And he immediately, with one sentence, changed my athletic life by saying, man, you can't breathe through your mouth. And I never worked out, exercised, or did anything breathing through my mouth again. And I remember at the when I first went for a run and I had your voice in my head and I'm like drooling, like like it was so hard to retrain myself to do that. But everything, I never breathe through my nose ever. It's like intolerable. I'll do everything I can to clear that honker up.
Yeah.
So I know that you're not, I have your bio from your website because I know you're not really great at talking about yourself and giving yourself accolades. So why don't you just tell us about yourself? Where are you from? How'd you get here with me?
It's great to be with you and RNegade, just a great organization. I'm just honored to share the wisdom and pearls that I've been able to cultivate, in my life. I was born and raised in a little beach town in southern New Jersey called Ventnor City. It's on the same island as Atlantic City. I grew up on the beach. I was in the ocean all the time. And gosh, I learned a lot about life just interacting with the ocean. It's such a powerful source of learning, that salt water and being on the beach all the time. And, I was just a kid growing up in the 60s and 70s. And, it was all about football, baseball, basketball, girls, get what you need, forget about the rest of the world. You're the best thing that was ever born. And, at some time in my life, I began to realize that was all a lie. the competition wasn't where it was at. It was about cooperation. And it began with me beginning to cooperate with the deeper versions of myself. And I began to notice that I wasn't in alignment at all with myself. And I was a broken man and was inflexible mentally and physically, emotionally, very rigid, and had a bit of an attitude, a bit of an edge to myself. And the universe connected me with a young lady who was in depth in the skill of yoga. And I didn't know what yoga was. This was early 90s. And it was just starting to get some sea legs in America. And it was fortunate that I met this girl because it basically saved my life. And it was able to correct my ego and connect me back with what's really important in being a son and being a teacher and a professor and being a father, all the things that really make the human experience worthwhile.
Was there, when you met that young lady, can you remember a day, or was there an instant that you can recall that made everything kind of different from one day to the next?
Yeah, there was two experiences. Number one, I remember one morning I woke up in her bed, and I might have been a little hungover. It was a weekend. It was like a Sunday morning. It's like 6 o'clock, and I look out through the hallway, and I could see the living room and the sunlight going in, and I could see her doing something with her body, like in a stationary way, and it looked like she was on some sort of carpet or something.
Yeah.
And I'm looking over there going, what the hell is that? I've never seen anything like this before in my life. And on one hand, it looked beautiful and flowing. And on the other hand, it looked challenging and creative. And I was just observing this. And about 15 minutes later, it comes into the bedroom. I go, what was that? Goes, oh, that's yoga. I do that for my mind and my body, and it really balances me out and makes me the better version of myself. And I'm like, well, will you teach me some of that? And I like that. That was like, oh my gosh. It was like, then all bets were off. And it was just like, oh my God, I can't even touch my knees. I have no idea how to breathe.
Wow.
I self-sabotage myself all the time. And like this cascade of like download came, and I'm like, wow, this is like the hardest thing I've ever tried in my life.
I mean,
I couldn't do it.
Aside from the physical, what was hard about it mentally, emotionally? Because I'm just picturing, here's this young masculine buck,
Yeah.
the person you just described is like, yeah, you have nothing to teach me. How was it for you mentally and emotionally to kind of lose your ego and learn about something? So almost, it's like you're watching a dance.
Yeah.
What was so attractive to you that got you over that?
I guess looking back on it, it was, I thought I was in my body. I thought I was physical. I thought I was emotionally strong. And that was all in my head. And it was all this story I told myself. And instantaneously, there was like this wall of like me really being in my body authentically without any expectation of performance, and just allowing the body to re-educate me in regard to how I could use my body most efficiently in my life.
What did that feel like? Like, is
Scary.
there scary?
Very scary. Like it was back to like kindergarten or preschool. It was like, nothing about yourself. Nothing about life. The skills you've cultivated are all blocking you from your greatness. So it was very exciting on some level, that I kind of knew that this was going to be the path for me, but I really couldn't see much further than 5 feet in front of me.
How long, I was going to say, how long did it take you to master it? But I have a feeling your answer is going to be you never did. I don't know why I think that.
It really set in motion the fact that we really don't know anything for long, and that we are all designed to be lifelong learners. and setting in motion baby little goals that, if I can learn one new thing every day, 7 days a week, it gives me permission to forget 7 old things from 20 years ago that have no bearing on the person who I want to be today.
Okay, this is a kind of a big question, and it's like almost too big to find the words to ask, but how does your body teach you those things when you kind of let go into the movements? Like even, back then when you first started doing it, how does your body teach you that?
Yeah. I think folks think the body's just something to carry the head around. It's like this unintelligent thing. It's just, we just feed it and we make love with it and we go to the bathroom with it and, we move it around. The body is the most enlightened thing that we have. It is this amazing miracle organism that is so organized. And we're looking at it just through the physical level. Like now there's a whole nother science of like the quantum level of the body that's starting to come present in medicine. And this is really throwing the apples out with the apple cart. So the body is an amazing organizing principle of the foundation of the present moment. And the present moment is really the only thing that I can really control if I wish. I really can't get too far out in front of me. There's nothing behind me really of any value. I have enough intelligence right here to be present and loving and serve humanity. Mm-hmm. So there's a level of intelligence in the body that speaks to us through feeling. There's like a felt sense where there might not be English there, or there might not be a movie like we see in the center of our head, but there's this thing inside. It's like, yeah, this is really good. This doesn't feel so good. Maybe I don't want to do that anymore. So there's this kind of thing in the body that it's not only is it emotional, it can be felt, but there's also a level of intelligence there that speaks to us beyond English or whatever language you were taught.
So when you started learning and getting reconnected with the present moment through your body and through, what did your life look like next? Give me some examples how things change for you from going from that young egoic, everybody, and nobody has anything to teach me guy to, talk a little bit about the evolution. And where I'm going with this is people like you who have that profound moment that everything looked different from one day to the next, or 1 week or 1 year to the next. And you have this realization that life is totally different. This place is totally different than what I thought it was going to be. How did that look like in your life? How'd that play out before you became a teacher?
Well, the first thing that I began to notice in some weird way was that things that used to bug me about other people, like driving or what they were wearing or what they said, didn't seem to have the same charge anymore. And I wasn't getting triggered everywhere into like, I'm the correction the world needs. So all the things that used to bug me were like starting to wither on the vine. I wasn't getting that kind of like that kind of like that cortisol buzz.
Yeah. That the feeling of entitlement.
Yeah. It was like, things outside of me that used to bug me didn't really bug me as much. And then I began to notice that the relationships that I had prior to this kind of mini awakening that were debilitating to my growth as a human being gradually began to wither on the vine. Like the phone didn't ring as much from Joe or Bill or, whatever that may have been, which was like this kind of darkness. And these other people began to call who were like healthier and wanted to explore new things as men that weren't being explored by men in the 90s as much. It's kind of like this feminine thing. Like, can I feel and think in the same moment, or is it always going to be thought? So like kind of the bad relationships begin to fall away. And this new relationship experience with other people began to develop.
How did people react to you differently?
Yeah, everybody said, wow, you're so calm now. You're so relaxed. You used to be so excitable all the time. And you had like this really big personality. I still had it, but inside there was a deeper calm. There was more relaxation to the part of me that I wanted or was allowed to bring forward to the outer world.
What do you attribute that to? And the reason I'm asking these questions is your work, your courses is going to be coming to the RNegade platform. Some of it is already there. Your breath training, and I want to give everybody kind of a preview of what they're going to get out of it by you talking about what you got out of it. So I just asked you, how did people react differently to you? And I'm curious, what do you attribute that to? So like, you're just doing the work on yourself, and people are falling away that aren't serving you, and people are coming into your life that reinforce the good work that you're doing on yourself. What is it that, because it doesn't sound like it was even a decision, like, I'm not talking to these people anymore, that just, they kind of, what do you attribute the change in the world around you just evolving with you?
The only thing I changed was I changed my breathing.
Oh, go on.
Number one, I stopped hyperventilating through my mouth. I had a little awakening. I was taking a 30-day teacher training with a school of yoga, a very old school. It was called Kripalu School of Yoga. And I just took it to get my life together. I didn't take it to become a professional. But then as the training unfolded, I began to notice that I had a little gift for holding space for myself and holding space for others. And these were very transformational practices. And it was very fulfilling to me to serve humanity on some level. I don't know what. So the Kripalu style of yoga it's a gentle form of hatha yoga. So there's movement. There's a third of it that's based in breath control, and there's a third of it that's based in relaxation and meditation control. And I was really turned on by the breath control part of it and the gentle form of yoga. It wasn't a vigorous Ashtanga style. I already had that through years of athletic training. I was very hard on my body. So having a gentle way to heal my connective tissue, my organs, and my neurology, and then adding the breath control was really the secret weapon to me. I knew there was something immediately in this breath. And my kind of come to Jesus moment, my Michelangelo moment, was at that time I was making a transition from working in a family business into getting into my own personal professional business on my own. But I remember one day I got caught in the office longer than I wanted to. I had a dinner engagement at 6 p.m. and my self-care routine, my gym routine, which is the foundation of my stress management, my health, how I sleep, everything in my life. If I don't have time for myself, it's really hard for me to have time for others. And I can't get out of the office. I got this hard line at 6 o'clock dinner date, and I'm pressed for time. And I get to the gym and I only have like a half hour, and I'm coming in there with like this poor me type attitude, and it's not going to work. And this little voice in the back of my head says, Ed, why don't you take that yogic breathing, the breathing that you do on the yoga mat, and bring it onto the Western training of weights and cables, and just try and see if this helps you get a better workout and maybe be a better human tonight. So I'm like, okay, well, let me see what I'm going to do. So back in the day, there's like these lat pull down cable machines where you grab the thing, and I knew it would open my chest and I could work my back and just pull it down. So instead of just grabbing it and doing 10, like the traditional Western training, I decided to inhale, hold my breath, and use a lighter weight so there's less tension on my muscle, bones, and joints. Hold my breath in and just do some slow motion reps with half the weight while the breath is held in. And I had never done this before. And by the time I got to 6 or 7 or 8, I'm like totally gassed. I'm completely hot. My heart rate is rising. And I put the weight back up. And by the time my hands came back down, I was downloaded thousands of files to my awareness of how I could bring this into every form of what I'm trying to do in my life to take care of myself. So just in that split second, the light came on, and then I was just like a kid in a candy store trying to bring different breath control protocols into whatever I was trying to do in my life, whether it be in the gym or out of the gym or in a hospital or in a yoga, wherever it may be, to help people and myself.
So really, you kind of I call, my word for God is George. So it's almost like George went, all right, you're the messenger. Here's the message, and totally revolutionized athletic training and blended Eastern and Western athletic sciences really through breath work.
Yeah, that's when the light went off, and I began to see that, number one, I could use lighter weight, which means I'm not going to get injured as much. I'm going to have less wear and tear injury. I'm going to be better in the macro and the micro of my life. When I'm older, I'm going to be able to move. I'm not going to get injured. Number two, I could use the breath control in simply a kind of a body shaping thing. But in the breath control, I could spike my heart rate up as if I was doing cardio. So I was like, oh my God, you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting anaerobic and aerobic activity. Not only are you building muscle, but you're also shaping and becoming more flexible. You're getting a cardio spike out of that. But you're also, when I took the breath away, my mind went completely quiet and still. There were no words. So I was completely engulfed in the now. So I got all four forms of self-care in the same second. I got a sports meditation, I got cardio, I got strength, and I got flexibility. So the four pillars of health, I was able to get all in the same second. And it was amazing.
Yeah. Then what happened? So you were just probably like a dick, because now you're in I think it's from the Gospel of St. Thomas. If you bring forth what is within you will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you will destroy you. So you just started going forth and, taking George's message. And so what happened in the next couple of years as you developed this training? So this is kind of like the entrepreneurial inspiration, that you just followed the effervescence. You got these, you're really revolutionizing something, and you're doing something that had never been done before. So what did it look like you taking that to other people? How did you spread your word?
Not good. Rejected massively. The athletic world is very, very rigid. And, there's no reason for you to adjust my breathing because I'm already breathing. It doesn't matter how I breathe. All that matters is how much weight I can lift or how fast I can run. There's no awareness about really, the investment that we're making and the price we're putting on, our cells and tissues in the long run. Everything is, it is all focused on, the best I can be today, regardless of, how I feel. So there was massive resistance, and folks would see me coming, they'd go the other way. They didn't want to hear any more from this breath guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And this went on it still goes on today, but they're the really great athletes that had a super relationship with pain and could break through barriers of pain and receive greatness. They knew there was something to it. And because they already had a relationship with their body at a very visceral level. And the really great athletes that I was able to come in contact with really became absorbed into this. And they took their career to another level.
So going back to that, the moment that it occurred to you when you went and, you had a 6:00 date or whatever, and, and you just thought, I'm going to hold my breath while I do this lat exercise. What is going on? I know this is probably a longer answer than we have time for on today's podcast, which is why you can go to Ed's breath training on RNegade. But what's going on there? Like when you're holding your breath, how are you getting the aerobic, the anaerobic, the meditation? What's going on when you hold your breath purposely?
you begin to create a relationship with the number one muscle that we don't talk about, which is our thoracic diaphragm muscle. And this is really a muscle that is almost like an organ in regard to all the responsibilities it has to balance the fluids and gases that we move between the soles of our feet and the crown of our head. Now, the issue with the thoracic diaphragm muscle is it only has one motor nerve, and it's such a huge muscle. So when you can consciously control your breath, you're sending electrical current to the phrenic nerve, and you're telling it to tone and strengthen and strengthen and strengthen. And the more that you can strengthen this phrenic nerve, the greater access you're going to have to this diaphragm, which is going to give you physical, mental, and emotional endurance in your lower body, staying grounded in your legs, grounded in your hips and your body, the larger muscles of the body. These are grounding rods that the amygdala of the brain loves to see connected, so we can tone down the amygdala, less talking, less self-talk, and then get into the body and optimal patterns of movement. So as we begin to hold our breath, this thoracic diaphragm presses down towards our buttock. And when it does that, it stabilizes our spine. So it keeps the spine straight with really great patterns of movement.
I can't help to not do that as you're talking.
Yeah, it keeps the chest open, because the lungs are great, but the lungs aren't muscle. The lungs are only tissue, and they're only going to be able to expand as much as your inspiratory muscles are strong and your ribs are elastic. So if you need more energy, it's going to come with a stronger diaphragm muscle, flexible ribs, and allowing the lungs to expand to their full 5-liter capacity, bringing in more oxygen. So creating a relationship with your in-breath is fundamental to endurance. And it doesn't matter whether you're an athlete, a nurse, a CEO, a father, a wife, you need energy to be you. You need sustainable energy to be you. And when you're breathing through your nose, you're secreting nitric oxide, which dilates the body. So you're getting a deeper, richer flow. When you're breathing through your nose, you're creating the most vertical pressure down, straightening your spine. And then you get this amazing hit in your enteric nervous system, which is kind of a branch of our autonomic nervous system, where there's so much serotonin and dopamine. And who doesn't want to feel good and be relaxed? Wow.
I know that anybody listening to this right now is you can't help but when you focus on your breath, even by just talking about it, and your diaphragm pushes down. When you stood up, and I don't know if for those of you who aren't watching this and are just listening to it, Ed pointed at the right below the xiphoid process, where the diaphragm, makes that up and down, like it's kind of like the fulcrum point. I have this feeling in my chest by just like taking a deep breath, just listening to you talk. And it's like this feeling like I want to smile. And there must be the serotonin. But it's like instant.
Right. And then you begin to break it down a little bit more. You begin to see that the physiology of the lungs and the nasal breathing and how it begins to connect to us being metabolically in balance all the time. We know that the lower lobes of the lungs are imbued with parasympathetic, oxygen-rich, hemoglobin-rich nerve endings. And this is fundamental to staying in a great 24-hour sleep-wake cycle and balancing our ultradian rhythm. The old brain, back in the old days, and we could get eaten, or we needed to get food. There wasn't a food store. You needed the energy of the upper lobes of your lungs to get that sympathetic charge, to get that cortisol and adrenaline, because you needed that 90 seconds or 2-minute quick burst of energy to get food or not become another animal's food. So the upper lobes of the lungs are an area that we really don't need in modern times to bring our awareness to. The idea is low and slow in the lower lobes of the lungs, great patterns of movement, serotonin-rich, oxygen-rich, hemoglobin bonds to the oxygen, and it moves the energy all around the body. We want to get full circulation from the soles of the feet to the crown of the head, and strong hemoglobin can do that. And we get hemoglobin from our bone marrow, but we also get it from the lower lobes of our lungs.
Holy cow. All right. So I want to go into a little bit more into depth into what you just said, because you're saying you're actually altering your biochemistry when
Hmm.
you're doing diaphragmatic breathing, slow and controlled.
Hmm.
Then if you're doing, I don't know, your upper lungs have a different biochemical release than when you're using predominantly your lower, your base of your lungs and your
Right.
diaphragm. Can you say a little more about that?
Yeah, so the upper lobes of the lungs are basically going to trigger your HPA access. And, we don't really need the HPA access, but it's hard to get around it in modern times because it's our hard drive. So that kind of drive, it shuts off digestion. We stop burning fat as our primary fuel source. We start to burn glucose, and all the energy leaves the viscera and goes out into our arms and legs to fight or flight, like back a million years ago. So what we can do is we can rewire our brain. We can update our brain for the future with this slow breathing. Say an event occurs and you're triggered, but you already have a strong foundation of serotonin and dopamine moving through your neurotransmitters and moving through the hormones of your body. You've been triggered. Something outside of you has temporarily caused you to be insane. So rather than deal with it in the HPA axis, you can pause and you can shift from your hypothalamus, which is part of the old system down in the base of the brain, to your hippocampus. You can evaluate the level of threat with the higher executive functioning centers of your brain and not respond to it like an animal. So you take your hippocampus.
For those, I just want glossary of terms for those who aren't, intimately familiar. It's just not top of mind. Hippocampus is where information comes in. That's
Yes.
and then it gets distributed for your learning, for your education, about what the world's going on around you. So you're talking about breathing for learning.
Yes. So we're going to upgrade our software through our hippocampus. We've been triggered from an old event.
Right.
That has come to the present of our mind, and we have a large reservoir of serotonin in low breathing. Rather than go to the hypothalamus, we go to the hippocampus. Rather than go to the pituitary gland, which is going to secrete all sorts of warring hormones, we go to the pineal gland and we get melatonin.
Now you're talking.
And then rather than going into adrenaline, we go into serotonin. So HPS access is the future of the human who doesn't want to use the ancient brain over and over again with simply thoughts, feelings, and memories that might be uncomfortable.
The implications for the last 3 minutes of what you just said are so vast. So you're talking about, somebody's like, people have become, I think, in the last decade more aware of their programming. How like when we were kids, we basically were just hit record, and then somewhere around our second molars break through, and then some, George presses play, and you're just reliving the programming that you were giving. And when people want to escape their old programming, they want to evolve in their life, they want to get better. Our biggest struggle is, well, how do we do that if it's all subconscious? And what you're saying is, if you can bring awareness to the present moment and become aware of the things that have triggered you to repeat your old programming and just breathe, you are reprogramming your brain, your subconscious, through the hippocampus. Is that correct?
That is 100% correct, and we all can do it.
Well, and the other thing, because I want you to give us a couple pearls and a couple exercises before we go, if that's okay with you. And the other thing that just, you were talking about fat burning.
Yeah.
So is this an alternative to Ozempic? Do you use this can you use this kind of pause? I know the answer to this, so I don't mean to be out of integrity, but explain. Well, pretend I just am asking you this for the first time, and I felt like I was lying just now by asking you something that I already know. So this can be used for weight loss as well, not just reprogramming your repetitive behaviors that are no longer serving you, but for fat burning. How does that work again?
So it's been proven by Dr. Ruben Merriman in Australia that 80% of our weight loss occurs through our lungs and through our nose on the length, pace, and depth of our exhale.
Oh my gosh.
Only 20% of weight loss occurs through sweat, urination, and evacuation from our bowels. So the body's primary fat burner is the lungs and the nostrils. There's an exchange that comes back out. What are we missing in today's world? We're missing the nostril exhale. We're doing that little mouth, and we're not getting the CO2 out. We're depriving the brain of oxygen. We're triggering the amygdala in the fight or flight, which is causing higher sympathetic action, and the body stops burning fat, and we're in a constant state of fight or flight or stress all day long and sympathetic overload all day long, and then we can't sleep at night. So most folks that when I begin to work with them across platforms, I begin to notice their exhale muscles are very, very weak. Their CO2 levels are dangerously high. The respiratory glands and the amygdala of the brain see that high level of CO2 as threat. And not only is it just a threat to the body, but it's a threat to the mind because the next inhale is not steady. We're coming into the next inhale, that next moment with that jumpy, bumpy, is everything okay? You know, is the air raid sirens off yet? And they're just thoughts. They're just memories of events that occurred between birth and 7 years old. Things when we weren't even aware of who we were yet. We didn't even know our name. So humanity can change in 2 weeks if everybody could just close their mouth, practice exhaling longer than your inhale through your nose. The amygdala will sense safety. Why? Because it sees the length of your exhale is longer than your inhale. When the amygdala senses safety and the all clear is on and there's no threat to damage to the organism, then the body organically burns fat.
Yeah. You don't need to store it because there's no famine coming.
You're safe.
You know, all is well. So this blew my mind. And, you know, back to what I was saying in the beginning about the first pearl of wisdom you gave me that totally changed my athleticism, like how I work out. And it just cracks me up because you go to a gym and everybody's on the treadmill or the elliptical or doing whatever they're doing, or even just lifting weights, and they're all breathing through their mouth. What is that doing? Anybody who's working out and breathing through their mouth, what's happening?
Well, first and foremost, when you see someone doing that in your own unique way, when you observe that, does that look like that's creating health?
Good point. Yeah.
Look at the quality of their mind by the quality of their face structure. Notice they've lost control of their lower body movements to some degree. Notice when people, this is something you can notice, when you mouth breathe, notice the top of your tongue comes off the upper palate. That is a red flag for the amygdala and safety and security and a beautiful, peaceful environment. You have to have the tongue up on the upper palate. And as soon as you drop that low jaw down, the tongue follows it down. And then there's a whole sort of issues through our vestibular system, through the lymphatic system of the brain, the lymphatic system of the body. Oh, it just is a terrible, terrible slide we go down.
Yeah. And so you're going to the gym to work out, to get in a bit good shape. And you're telling your body the whole time, you're telling your brain and your body, it's not safe. It's not safe. It's not safe. So of course you get the cortisol release. And what does cortisol tell the body to do? Store fat.
Yeah.
So we've covered, this is great because it kind of gives everybody a page 1, chapter 1, introduction to you and your work. But we're talking about athleticism. We're talking about weight loss. We're talking about subconscious reprogramming, all done through the breath.
Yeah. And it's all done for us. All we need to do is learn how to control our breath 10, 15 techniques. Take you a couple hours to learn them, and you'll have them for the rest of your life. And you'll know how to stay in autonomic balance. You'll know how to burn fat. You'll know how to stall aging and have longevity to the brain and the body. But the little secret here that nobody talks about is when you learn how to control your breath and control your physiology biochemically, your patterns of movement, here's the little nugget. You begin to control your mind. Your mind doesn't control you based on what you've been through in the past. You begin to wake up.
That's the dirty little secret, isn't it? Because once you can do that, everything else kind of falls into place.
Well, once we wake up, the nightmare, we begin to realize it's
Yeah.
just a dream. It wasn't real. It's over, and all that's real is right here, right now.
Is that what happened to you when you found this when you were younger? Like, it was like when you look back at the man you were back then, before you found yoga, before you found this, working through your breath to live through your breath, really.
Yeah.
Life with Breath, the name of your first book. Does that seem like a dream, like somebody else?
Yeah, it seemed like it was 10,000 years ago. It's remarkable when we begin to find out how loved we are and how much love is available to us. And we begin to realize, I could choose hate, but every time I've chosen it, it hasn't really worked out well for me and the people around me.
Yeah.
When we begin to realize that we're involved in just something greater than can be described to us by English, and we are so valuable, and what we're bringing to the world is so desperately needed. And when we begin to realize that the gifts that we bring to the banquet table are big enough, we begin to show up more.
That's stirring. That makes me feel a little like it's so true. It just hit me like when you hear something that is just true.
Yeah.
I love that. Can you give a couple, so for anybody listening, and I'm sure everybody is, every time I hear this stuff, I learn something new. It's just like, I sit in a room with you and you can not even be talking and I learn something new. But can you give some examples, maybe one from each sector that we kind of covered? And I know there's so many more, but one from athletics, professional athletes, one from somebody who is struggling with weight, and mostly somebody who is struggling with their programming. One or three big wins that you've seen people evolve just through using their breath.
So for athletes, let's inhale into the abdomen region of the body. Don't let the air get up into the chest. So just say we inhale for a 4 count, hold in for a 2 count. Stop your mind right there. Be present. Exhale for a 4 count, and then hold out for a 2 count. And go through that cycle as you begin your gym routine, whether it's weights, whether it's cardio, whether it's bands, whatever you're doing. Warm up your respiratory system first, your cardiovascular system second, and your neuromusculoskeletal system third. And you're going to be remarkable in 15 minutes after that 4-2-4-2 simple breathing sequence. Do not open your mouth. Now, weight loss. Drawing up on the pelvic floor, drawing up on the reproductive organ, drawing up on the buttock muscle. So you've created a strong tripod at the bottom of your upper torso. You can feel blood flowing there. Now take a deep breath in, hold the breath, and push your thoracic diaphragm down to where you were just lifting up. So you're taking the muscle of primary evacuation that we use a couple times a day.
I was going to say, it's like if you're going to poop.
Same thing. So you secure the bottom. So you secure the container, then you inhale and you hold and press down. Notice how that feels. So you're super oxygenating the organs of digestion, elimination, and assimilation. You're super oxygenating your sacrum and your lumbar spine, the most important part of the trunk of the spine.
So
and in that downward,
like a little bit of a burn, like I'm working out that muscle.
Yeah. Oh, did you feel how that blood just shoots right up to the center of our brainstem?
Yeah, and from the back of my neck, I can feel it all the way.
Yeah. So we want to get good blood flow through the clockwise digestion cycle and burn fat. So if you did 5 times, once in the morning, deep breath in, hold, secure the bottom up, press the thoracic diaphragm down.
As you're inhaling.
Yeah.
That takes
But
practice.
it's so simple. So
I know.
simple.
Seems like you'd catch on quick because you could feel it.
Well, when you start to see that you can move your thoracic diaphragm 4 different ways, you can press it down, you can lift it up, you can push it out, and you can squeeze it back. So when you start to add that to the diaphragm, everything begins to change in the flows of energy in your mind and the flows of energy in your body.
Okay. And then you already gave us the one, if you're getting triggered, you bring awareness. And I know you expand on this in your breath training. So it's a 25-hour, 24, 25, I can't remember.
25.
It's a big course. And you learn all of the science, all the research, all of Ed's proprietary, following the effervescence, all the things that he's come up with himself just by the artistry of common sense, taking his expertise and his personality and a little help from George and putting it all together. It's an incredible training. So if you're listening to this and like, wait, do that again, go take his training or hit rewind. But what is the breath, just to review, and then the one for when you want to bring yourself into the present moment, you're aware that you're being triggered by some kind of programming that you would like to change. What was that breath?
So the best thing we can do when we're triggered is push back against the sympathetic switches that are hard drive. So I know that my inhale is sympathetic naturally, and I know that my exhale is parasympathetic naturally. There's a technique from the yoga system called the Ujjayi breathing, or the ocean sounding breath, where we valve the air through the top of the trachea. And this dilates the nostrils, it dilates the sinuses, and it allows the breath to come in slower. So when the breath comes in slower through the nostrils and the sinuses by using this valve, you've brought parasympathetic qualities, software, to something that is hard driven as sympathetic on the inhale. So you override and rewrite that. So when you slow down your inhale, you're organizing the various departments of your brain, and they begin to form maybe a different way of interacting with that trigger. And then on the exhale, you simply want to exhale as long as you possibly can and flush your body of higher levels of sympathetic hormones. So ocean sound, slow down the inhale, bring parasympathetic activity to something that's traditionally sympathetic, and then ride the exhale to completion and clear the parts of your body that were holding that trigger from the past that you just now incinerated in the present moment.
I love that. You just incinerated it. Oh, that's great.
It won't be back.
Let's go into, tell us a story. So that was a lot of good science technique delivered through your story, but tell us about a win of somebody you worked with, whether it was a professional athlete, somebody who wanted to lose weight, from the 3 categories we kind of just covered, that the evolution you saw in them after doing some of these breath work exercises.
Well, I just did a program on Tuesday for LinkedIn Global. It's one of the largest companies in the world. And it was connecting peak performance during the day with peak sleep performance at night, and how we can stay in autonomic balance during the day, pushing back against the external environment of light. So there's higher sun in the morning than there is in the afternoon. There's no sun in the evening. There's just moon. And then there's moon until 2 o'clock in the morning when the melatonin stops. And then we have sun again at 5 a.m. So we created a breathing program for professionals where they could stay in autonomic balance, burning fat all day long, keeping circadian and ultradian rhythms in balance so they can perform at the highest levels during the day, but there's no debilitation of the quality of their sleep, their REM sleep at night. So it was an amazing program. And it's just great bringing this stuff out to people younger than me who are, out in their career and that, they're working really hard, but it seems like there's something missing, like, and they're maybe a little overly stressed, or the world isn't working out for them right now. But just giving people like the 24-hour cycle and how the breath can help us perform better at both the daylight and the evening hours.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's like anti-aging, staying young. For anybody who's just listening to this, if you look at Ed, he looks like he's in his mid-40s. And I was just over, maybe not even, and I was just over visiting him and Wendy, partner of RNegade, and
yes,
he dragged my boyfriend up a mountain, and the guy could barely keep up with him. And he's 15 years younger, I think. It surely shows. You are a walking advertisement, walking infomercial for yourself and your work, and pretty much also anybody you encounter. It's just like you have this magnetism. You're just so easy to be around. And I'm so glad I got to spend this hour with you, Ed. And Ed and I are doing we're kind of doing a co-training. If you don't make it, I think it's November. We're October 31st, 2024. I think we're doing it November 13th. I don't even know.
Yes.
Wendy
really excited.
Yeah. And we're doing the ultradian cycle and breathing. We're combining the two, and it's called abbreviated.
Yes.
Some quick shots to for all that stuff to improve your lives globally. So anybody will be happy to have you all join us on that. And Ed's breath training, and there's more coming to the RNegade library. Can you believe that you can listen to this, improve your life, and then take it, practice it, teach it to your patients, improve the lives of others? And it's all available on the RNegade platform. And we're so excited to have you on board, Ed, not only as a podcast partner, a course creator, and also just your energy on the platform. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me, Karen. I'm honored to be here and share what I can do to help.
You got to say it. You got to say it.
Go be great.
That's
it. Love you, honey.
Love you more.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Renegades.